Well, hey there, everybody. I am not Ellie with Nourishment Redacted. Ellie isn't here, but I am Cristie at Meaty Wellness, and I would like to personally welcome you here to Lioness Lifestyle Live, and I'm so happy to be meeting with you this evening.
And I'm Adrian from Adrian K. Gledhill. Tonight, Ellie has a bug. You know, the bugs are going around, so she won't be able to be here. But if you could all send her an extra roar so she'll feel better soon, we'd appreciate it. Tonight, we have a new guest. And if you have any questions for her, please put QQQ or question in the comments, and we'll be sure to get it to her.
But before we get to our awesome guest, I think it's time for this week's Roar of the Week. So now that we don't have 3 people, it's over both of our faces. We have to peek over the top. Oh yeah, you could go under, I'll go over. But this is from David. So our guest last week was at KetoCon this past June, and you did meet her there. And the reason I'm shouting out this comment is KetoCon was one of the best events I've been to. Like, it was amazing. But not only that, is I got to meet our current guest. I got to meet her at KetoCon as well. So yeah, Adrian too. So if you want to be next week's Roar of the Week, please drop a comment to us after this live video is over. Drop a comment and we will shout you out next week. And with that, I'm not going to be as good as Ellie at this, but I'm going to give it a shot. With that, without any further ado, we're going to bring out our wonderful guest for the evening. Hey, everybody. Hi, look who it is. Susan Myers. Hey, Susan. Welcome in. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks, Cristie and Adrian, for having me. Sorry I'm missing out on Ellie. I hope she feels better.
I hope she feels better, too. We miss her tons. But as usual, we would love to start out with you just kind of sharing your health journey. Where did it start? Where were you at the beginning? And how did you get to where you are now? As Ellie sometimes like to say, share with us all the juicy details, please.
There's lots of details. I'll try not to jump around too much. So my story really started when I was a child. From as far back as I can remember, I had digestive issues, lots of digestive issues, a lot of bloating, a lot of constipation. It seemed like every food I would eat, it didn't like my body. Or maybe I didn't like my mother's cooking. I don't know. It could have been both. But I remember like at around 10 years old, in elementary school, preteen years, just feeling like I was gaining a lot of weight and my stomach hurt all the time. And it felt like a hard balloon bubble, and with that, I had a lot of emotional issues at a young age, and didn't really know how to manage my communications with family and friends. Blurted out things. I got a nickname from my brother, Mouth. Because I would speak my thoughts all the time, inappropriately, and sometimes that can still happen, but so those were things that in remembering back in my life, it started young. And then it seemed every time I would eat pizza, my favorite food in the world, I would be sick. Again, severe constipation, bloating. The bloating was the worst. The pain, it was actual physical pain. My mom would bring me to the doctors and they would say, give her more fiber. I've had to have, Metamucil, Pepto-Bismol, enemas, you name it. Like my preteen, teen, and young adult years, I went through that a lot. And they just said more fiber, more fruits, more vegetables. That was the thing. And I was also addicted to candy at the time. And it was the 70s. So we went to school lunch with ring dings and Del Monte tin can chocolate pudding and fluff and nutter sandwiches, on Wonder white bread, So I mean, that was our diet. And then we would have the occasional, oh, Thursday night is meat and potatoes night. So every once in a while we'd have meat, we'd have potatoes, we'd have vegetables. And if we get to my grandmother's, then we'd get the really good food. And I remember always at Thanksgiving loving to peel the skin off the turkey and eat it. And everybody would tell me not to do that. It's bad for you. You can't eat the skin. It was so good. So little did I know. So it was a lifetime of weight gain and pain and crazy diets. And then, you know, you get into high school, you want to look good. You start, you know, wanting to date guys and go to the dances. And so I started to eat less so I could get skinny, you know. It didn't happen till senior year. I finally got skinny. Finally, people were asking me out. Guys were asking me out, you know, dates. But I never got to go to my prom because my boyfriend at that time was 23 years old. And he wasn't going to go to no high school prom. So that didn't happen. But that kicked in the diet phase of my life. You know, I gotta not eat the pizza anymore or the bread. I got to eat just the salads. I got to go to Figures and Fitness like the other girls with the Jane Fonda outfits and work out at the gym. And that's when I think Slim Fast came out in the 80s, the Slim Fast shakes and the bars. Fen came out then. Didn't know what it was, but it helped you lose weight. But I found out later it was basically speed. You know, I was taking speed in late high school and college, and always depression, always anxiety, always mood swings, always just struggling with forging proper relationships with people and communications. And I used to have this saying growing up that God missed me when he handed out emotional maturity, you know, like all the other girls were growing up and getting smarter and maturing. And I was like stuck in this childish stage in my mind, and which lasted for a long time. So you fast forward to college. I went to a 2-year community college, and I struggled. I struggled with school. Like, I was smart. Like, I got good grades if I studied hard and I crammed and that kind of thing. But I wanted so bad to be accepted and to fit in, you know. So drinking became my thing, drinking alcohol. And I got really good at drinking beer, a lot of beer, and never get drunk. I had to pretend to be drunk. I couldn't understand why I couldn't get drunk drinking all this beer. Everyone else was drunk, having fun at the party. So I would pretend that I was drunk. And they would actually tell me, Susan's the designated driver because she can drink all the alcohol and not get drunk. So that's how bad it was back then. The drinking age was really young when I was 18, but we could get into the bars at 16. It was crazy times. So I know now that, you know, fermented foods and wheat don't agree with me. That's something I learned. But it was crazy. So lots of parties, drinking. I think I got and to back up a little, my mom was an alcoholic, and she's passed now. But so there was a lot of that growing up too, you know, a dysfunctional family. You know, every family has some form of dysfunction. I know that now as a mature adult, but back then it was tough growing up in that type of environment. So I'm going to community college. I'm partying, drinking, barely passing my grades. I just wanted to get out of there. I hated school. I didn't want to go to school anymore. And then I become a word processor at a bank. I get a job. I finally get like an adult job. I graduate from college, and I finally have an opportunity to move out of my parents' house, but that didn't work out. So I still had to live with them. And then fast forward, I got a job at the Postal Service in 1986, working nights and lots of partiers, just like me there. And didn't sleep much because partied a lot, making good money now. So I finally got an apartment, finally moved out on my own. And my whole life was about partying. And then I would, my digestive issues would be bad and I would be diet. I was a yo-yo dieter. You name the diet, I did it. I did all of them. And I would lose weight, I would gain weight. I would lose weight, I would gain weight. And up and down, up and down. But I maintained between 123 pounds and 130 pounds on average in my 20s. And I thought that was good. I never got like anorexia or binge eating disorder or bulimia because I was the kind of person that did anything in her power to prevent myself from getting sick. From drinking or whatever. I hated throwing up. So I never would try to purge my food, so to speak. And plus they had all the after school special TV shows back in the 70s and 80s. You watch those and you learned a lot about anorexia nervosa and bulimia. And I got too afraid to get one of those diseases. So I didn't go down that road, which, I don't know why, but I did the diet pills. But then the diet pills that were speed actually led to real speed, and real speed led to cocaine. And I had a little period of time I was doing street drugs to try to help me feel better about myself because the alcohol would be depressant. So I need something to bring me up, right? So speed and cocaine was what brought me up. And I couldn't do marijuana because that put me to sleep. I was a one-hit wonder. It would knock me out. And it was rough times. And not a lot of people in my life, until I started telling my testimony on these forums, did anyone know that I went down those paths, some people knew, but I don't even know if half of them are still alive. But just always sick still. I would think it was the doctor's fault, and I would have to try to find another doctor to find out what was wrong with me because I didn't believe anymore that I was okay and that the food, that the fiber was going to help, because it never did. And I can't even tell you how many salads a day I was eating at one point, probably all 3 meals. And it got to be crazy. And then, so I decided to move out to the Berkshire Mountains out in West Stockbridge in the boonies, in the mountains. It was beautiful. And while I was there, I thought I was going to do summer stock theater because I liked being in theater, because I did that for a stint, being on stage and acting. I stopped the drugs at 27, by the way, because I almost died at one point. So I knew then I never did street drugs again after 27. But at 29, I found out I was pregnant, and I was devastated because I'm like, how am I going to raise a kid? I can't manage my own life. I've made every bad decision you could possibly make from the age of 13 to 29. This is crazy. And physically ill all the time. And I actually had made an appointment with a hospital to not have him. And I had met a woman who, she saw me crying at the bus stop on my way to go to this appointment. And she's like, let's not do that. Where do you live? Let's go back to your apartment. I'm like, okay. So we go back to my apartment, and she pulls a Bible out of her bag, and needless to say, that day I accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior, and I decided to keep my son and get my life together. So that's what happened at that age. But being pregnant, I thought it was a free-for-all, I guess. And I ate whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, drank and everything. Oh, no, I didn't drink while I was pregnant. Take that back. I didn't drink the alcohol, but I ate whatever I wanted. Like I'd go down the sports bar down the street and I could eat a whole big cheese pizza, no problem. I'd eat a gallon of ice cream. At that time, the Olympics were when Nancy Kerrigan and the ice skater problem back then. And I would be watching the Olympics, stuffing my face, eating my emotions like I always did, gaining tons of weight, still having digestive issues, still having depression, still having anxiety, wondering how the hell am I going to be a single mom? And it was just a roller coaster ride of craziness. And so, and still at this time, this juncture in my life, I still struggled with being able to forge good relationships with people. You know, I pushed my family away. I pushed friends away. I pushed a lot of people away because when you have this manic depressive mood swing stuff, which I now know is bipolar 2 disorder, I was diagnosed in 2004. And my son was born in 94. So 10 years after that, that's when I found out I was that I had bipolar 2. So it explained a lot. But during all that time too, that I was doing drugs in my 20s and drinking and partying, I was also taking antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds. They said I had ADD. So I was on a lot of medications and for a long time. I think I added it up. By the time I started to the time I quit, I was probably on 5 different medications for a 25-year period. And it was crazy. And so my dad took ill, so I moved back to the town I grew up in. And somehow God helped me, and I raised my son pretty darn good, and I was able to buy a house, but I creeped up to almost 300 pounds, and a lot of weight gain, and a lot of mental illness, a lot of therapy. A child raising a child, and mentally I was a child raising a child, because one of the things I learned when I used to go to adult children of alcoholic meetings and 12-step programs is the age you start drinking alcohol and doing any kind of drug, your emotional maturity sort of stops at that age until you get the help you need to grow up. So that is really why I couldn't manage my life so well. And so going to church, raising my son, trying to help out my family, trying to get my life together. And so I'm going to fast forward a little because there's just so much in betweens and can't tell your whole life in just 30 minutes. So it's during the time I was raising him as a little boy, as a baby, actually, when he was still a baby, I saw this book called Protein Power by Michael Eads. And so I read it and I started eating meat, the more protein. And so I always had protein and salads and just vegetables and fruit. And I stopped the pizza and it worked for a while, and I was losing weight and I was feeling good. But then when I make the mistake of telling people what I'm doing with my life, and they talk me out of doing things. I call that the crab bucket today. But, oh, you can't eat meat. You're going to end up like your dad with his heart problems and all the people in our family who have heart disease. You can't eat that. Red meat's bad for you. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I stopped, went back to the way I was eating, put the weight back on, miserable again. And so it just stayed that way for 10 more years till my son was 10 years old, actually. So for 10 more years, I just miserable. And no, and I was so negative and bitter and angry at how my life ended. And I was reading the Bible and I was praying, but it's like I wasn't, you can believe, but if you don't apply it, you know, it doesn't matter. You know, you know, I don't think I had the faith at that time. So then I get up to, it's 2007. I'm trying to do online dating because I tried to lose some weight again. I tried the vegetarian way with vegetables and fruits, no meat, no sugar, you know, whole foods only. And I felt like little knives cutting my stomach all the time, but because I would have boneless chicken breasts on salad every night, you know, or eggs chopped up, because then I was like, oh no, I can't have meat. So let's do eggs. I would be pescatarian. All right, just do fish. So I was trying so hard to be healthy, buying all the cookbooks and still on all the medications. And then it's like around 2007. And I dated this guy, and I think I started to get mentally better a little. So I was dating this guy, and he had proposed to me, and I don't know why I said yes. And I think it was because it was on a cruise ship, and I didn't want to embarrass him. And but I knew that this wouldn't work out. So, and I got to get my life together. It's like, and I told my story all the time to people. I got to get my life together. And they get upset with me. You're always saying that. And I'm like, because I'm always messing up, you know? And so I started really applying the therapy that I was going for and trying to read the Bible more, try to increase my faith more, doing all this stuff to try to thinking that would heal my mind, you know? And one day I was at work, and I started just putting all my symptoms into the computer on my lunch break. I Googled all my health problems one by one. And it kept pointing to nutrition. Change your nutrition. Get rid of this. Get rid of that. And I'm like, yeah, well, I did all that and it didn't work. So I dug deeper. And lo and behold, this book, I see the Protein Power book come up in the feeds. And I'm like, oh, I remember that book. And it was like a light bulb moment. I felt good when I did that book 10, 15 years previous. So I looked for it again. And while I was looking for it, I found a book called Paleo Solution by Rob Wolf. And so I ordered it. And I did overnight delivery from Barnes & Noble. And I read that book. And everything in it made sense to me. And I made an appointment with an integrative health doctor to get all the blood work that he said I should get. And they must have taken 25 tubes of blood out of me because I did the whole food allergy testing too. And a nurse had pulled me aside and said, you know what, when you get home, take all the food that has a shelf life of over 2 to 3 weeks on the labels and just throw it in the trash. Don't even give it to the homeless shelter because it's not good for them either. I said, okay. I was at this point where I was going to do whatever anyone told me to do. I was desperate. Now I was pushing to 300 pounds. And I was in a 4X shirt and a almost 26 pant. It was embarrassing, you know. And, you know, bigger clothes, when you're that big, clothes are expensive. And being a single mom, it wasn't in the budget to keep growing. So I did the paleo. And in the paleo book, it referenced this thing called CrossFit. And then I saw CrossFit, and all I could think of was, oh my God, The Biggest Loser. I get to flip tires. I love that show, by the way, Adrian. I probably saw you. on it. I watched every episode. So while I was stuffing my face. So yeah, I walked in a CrossFit gym and I was like, I did the Paleo Solution book and I'm eating right and I need to learn how to do this. It looks like fun. And I couldn't walk for like 2 months after the first class that I did there. And I didn't think I'd go back, but I did. And I lost 125 pounds in almost 2 years. And I was like, wow, just from eating meat and salads and nuts and seeds. But I still had digestive issues and I still had mood swings. But the therapy and my faith was making it better, but it still wasn't really better. And I still had this knife-like feeling in my stomach. There was a show where I used to watch with Karen Black with these little voodoo dolls with knives. And that's how I would describe how it felt in my stomach, like little knives cutting me up. And never knew what it was. And then I went to, and then I had let sugar and some junk food back into my life and gained some weight back. And I'm like, oh no, I can't let this happen again. So I went back to strict paleo. And then next thing you know, it's 2017, 2018. And I'm trying to do all the things to make my brain better. And at this point, when I did the paleo, actually, I took myself cold turkey off the ADD meds and bipolar. I was on gabapentin, and it made me pass out and do a face plant at work. So I said, I'm not taking that anymore. And then they wanted to put me on lithium. And I said, no, I'm not going on any more drugs. I'm done. You people are just killing me. And I went cold turkey off and I never went back to a doctor. And I don't recommend people doing that. I should have weaned off because all holy hell broke loose and how I was when I did that. But so fast forward to COVID and lockdowns, and I was still going up and down with my weight. I would let something in and think, oh, I can tolerate it now, but I couldn't, and so I wanted so desperately to get better again, because I was going backwards. I was sliding backwards kind of fast. So I started looking again. Well, what can I do to jumpstart if paleo's not completely working? What else is there? And I saw this references to keto way of eating, and I found a nutritionist. It was during the lockdown times in end of 2019 into 2020, and her name is Callie Youngstrom, and she's in Canada, Saskatoon. And I hired her for 6 months, and she became my ketogenic nutritionist. And she taught me about ketosis. And I'll tell you, for the first time in my life, I had a normal functioning brain. No more depression, no more anxiety, no more ADD. I was focused. I was energized. I was normal. My Oh, did we get lost? I see circles on the screen.
We can hear you, so you just go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just all of a sudden everything disappeared.
Most people are just listening, and we can still hear you.
Oh, good. So I'm working with her, ketogenic and ketosis, and it was like a miracle. My brain never felt that good in my life ever. And I'm like, so working in intermittent fasting, she taught me, intuitive eating, she taught me. And I wasn't doing like the high saturated fat meat. Like I was doing coconut oil and olive oil, the keto whole foods way of eating. And it was good, but I couldn't understand, why do I still have stomach pains? And I'm like, well, it is what it is. I got a normal brain again. I'll live with it. And then I decided to retire December of 21. And my nutritionist, Callie, and I were still friends to this day. I don't work with her anymore. And she's awesome. She's like in Nicaragua now. She fell in love. And so I retired. The day I retired, I got COVID. I had it bad too. And my husband had it bad. And he, by the way, my husband, I met him when my son was 14 and we started dating, and I was in the process of, losing weight and trying to get healthy. And he accepted me for who I was. And when my son was 20, he walked me down the aisle to my now husband. We just celebrated 10 years of marriage. So that's how much diet got me better, that my relationships with people improved and I fell in love and everything. So then in January of 22, I'm on the couch nursing COVID. And my husband and I are like, we're dead. We feel like we're dying. And what's YouTube? He goes, oh, yeah, it's kind of cool that you can watch some cool stuff on there. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I started looking for keto stuff, and then I found carnivore stuff. And next thing you know, I'm watching the premiere of Plant-Free MD YouTube channel and meeting Dr. Chafee and all the carnivore influencers. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. But I waited a couple months before I did it. And just 2 ribeye steaks a day. And, I was curing them in the salt in the fridge like he did. And I was like, wow, I feel like $1 million. I'm not having stomach pains anymore. And I'm like, this must be what he meant. The plants are trying to kill you. Like the knife pains in the stomach were gone. So all this time, my whole life, my stomach was hurting because of the gosh darn plant. I couldn't believe it. My husband's so happy that I became carnivore because a vegetable never really comes into our home anymore. He's like, I don't have to eat broccoli anymore. And I'm like, no, it's kind of gross, isn't it? It tastes bad and smells bad. So, and I did all the communities. I started with Steak and Butter Gal, and then I was in Dr. Kils's community, and I invested in Rivero. So I ended up being in Carnivore Diet membership for the rest of my life, lifetime membership. But what happens when you get your brain back and you get focus back and you get energy back, you get your life. And I don't have time to be sitting in these communities on the computers anymore. But I love all the people that I've met. And now I'm like addicted to going to the meetups and being with all the carnivores in real life. And so that's at KetoCon, Cristie, and I'm just meeting all the people. Karen Miles, Lisa Wiedemann. I'm going to Meat Stock. I'm going to go on the carnivore cruise. I got to get on that, by the way. And I have the best life in the last 2.5, almost 3 years now, carnivore. I'm living my best life in every area of my life. And I said this in Casey's interview, my best life, because I have awesome relationships with men and women. I've restored and reconciled familiarships. I hiked the Grand Canyon. I'm going to meetups. I'm having a blast. I'm 60 years old and I'm living a life that I only dreamed of for years, you know, and it's all because of ribeye and butter. Literally, like, I mean, that Texas barbecue in Austin, Texas was the best food I ever ate in my life. The beef ribs. I'm in love with beef ribs. Proper human diet, you know. I'm loving what Carrie Mann is doing, what everyone's doing. Dr. Barry. I watched them all. I listened to them all. I've met half of them already. Want to meet more. And
yeah.
And I do these interviews, and when people ask me to come on, like you guys, to get the word out more.
Sorry, your audio is
story in a nutshell.
There we go. Yeah, your audio is glitching again for just a minute there, but man, what struck me about your story is you started off really talking about you couldn't even form relationships with people because your brain just sort of stopped maturing, and then the end of the story is now it's like you almost crave making these new relationships. And it's like you cherish these new relationships. And so that's just like an amazing transformation. Yeah. I want to focus in a little bit on the mental health aspect of this. I'm curious because I did put it in the chat. I've been watching a lot of like ketogenic diet for mental health stuff lately, and like looking at these case studies and what they're doing. You know, it's kind of, I wonder if it was some divine intervention that led you to get this keto coach, because I didn't hear you say coach for any of the other diet things you tried. But that keto coach helped you get into ketosis. Do you think that's what made the difference? And then because of that, do you still check your ketones and things now that you're carnivore in order to keep your mental health in check?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. So this past year, I'm in my friend Rebecca Blackstock's community, Carnivore Wellness. And we did the book club. And so 2 of the books that we did was Brain Energy by Dr. Christopher Palmer and Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind by Dr. Georgia Eads, who lives 15 minutes from me in Northampton. And in that book, it goes into great detail how all the depression, anxiety, all of it, the standard American diet, literally. Once we put saturated animal fat in our brain, it heals so quickly. And then Hal Cranmer, he had his patients on the ketogenic diet. And they don't.
Are you there?
I'm here. Did we lose each other again? I closed out all my browsers, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
We can hear you now.
Oh, okay. What's the last thing you heard?
We were just talking about you were talking about some of the people you were reading and the mind.
Yeah, so Brain Energy and Dr. Georgia Eads books, and how and Hal Kramer in the assisted living centers, and putting all his patients on ketogenic diet, and now they're living independent lives. So, and how and the book really goes into detail in Brain Energy book on Alzheimer's. It did not even exist until 1979. And so, and then in the 80s, the food pyramid. And now 74% of adults in this country are obese. 74%. And that's crazy. And never mind the kids. That percentage might even be higher. But the amount of mental illness in children that never existed before, the dementia, the Alzheimer's, the bipolar, all of it. And so there's this family called the Bazookies, and they started Metabolic Mind, and they partnered with Brett Shearer and Christopher Palmer, and they're getting all the word out how the proper human diet reverses all neurological disorders. All of them. All of them. And at first I was mad and angry that I lost a whole life because of the stupid food pyramid and psychiatric drugs and my own choices of doing street drugs. But then I remembered that everything happens for a reason. God had a plan, and he's going to use the pain of my life to help somebody, even if it's just one single person. I haven't had success talking to people about it because they're stuck in their ways and they don't. And I don't want to go through all the certification to become a coach. So YouTube interviews, I figure, all right, I get my story out that way. If it helps somebody, that's great.
I mean, I found it helpful because it's so reassuring just to hear so many parallels. I would say you had some childhood trauma. So did I. And then they say, and you talked about coping with your mouth. Mine was more making fun of myself, making fun of everything, making jokes, trying to be the funny person, or saying obscene things. I would say really obscene things like potty talk and stuff like that. And I mooned everybody. I'm sorry, everybody that I grew up with. Just obscene. And that was like my coping methods. So that I totally relate with that. And then I was just listening to Jay Shetty with John Harry, and there was this interview, and they were talking about the psychology and how, I mean, it's like innate, especially in women, that we will put on weight to protect ourselves, to distance ourselves from other people, to encapsulate ourselves. It's a protection. We don't even realize we're doing that. And I still have problems with that. And it's innate. Like, I don't even think about it and I do it. Like, if I start feeling like, oh, I've got this, I innately will undo it. And so the psychology part is so intriguing, isn't it? Behind all this. And I totally agree. I recently interviewed a nurse.
And it's funny.
Go ahead. I recently interviewed a guy named David, and he has a podcast called Describe, and he's a psychiatric nurse. And he's talking about how these psych meds don't seem to be helping too many people. Like, you don't hear too many people go, wow, this just completely cured everything. I'm great now. You know, you hear, I think I feel a little better, but I'm afraid to come off of it. And then there's the side effects. And so you're still feeling significantly better and you're without medicine today, or do you take some and you've reduced it, or?
No, I'm totally off all medications. I've been off all medications for years. Yeah, because I went cold turkey off of them back when I started paleo 14 years ago. Never would I take another prescription drug as long as I live. You know, it's hard enough for me to take an Excedrin if I get a headache. I don't take anything. The only vitamin supplement I take right now is colostrum. I just eat the food and sleep and drink water, and I do plain seltzer. I finally gave up sweeteners. I canceled all my LMNT orders. Because it works that quickly. If I have sweet, or if I had gluten in my system, within 24 hours, I would be depressed. That's how fast it negatively affects the brain. And it's all the poison that's in the food. And I was just listening to David Hansen. today being interviewed by Megan Kelly, and he grew up on a farm. And he said, if you were to interview all the farmers in this country of the last 100 years and the families, they all used to live to like 100 years old. But the last 2 generations die by the time they're 70 of the farmers. And it's because of the chemicals and the pesticides that the agriculture companies tell them they have to put on their crops. And his whole family died of tumors, and at different members of his family at different ages. Even his daughter died at 26 years old. And so the pesticides that they're spraying on the crops and then people are eating from the supermarkets, it is killing people, literally killing people.
Yeah,
Even
that's
if
another
plants
good
were
reason
good for us.
Right.
The
Yeah,
pesticides.
I was just saying that's another reason to stay away from them, is just because of the pesticides. And even like the organic label, you know, it might be better, but they still put stuff on that too. So our friend Ellie has a question for you. She wants to know, she says, you used to be called Mouth as a child, and now you're using your mouth to spread the word. What do people think about your opinions now? Do they see your improvement after a lifelong battle?
Some do see my improvements, but they'll say they will never eat like I do. They're still going to eat the way they do. They're still going to drink their alcohol. They're still going to live. They're going to die happy. And I'm like okay. People don't want to hear it, so I stopped giving unsolicited advice. Every once in a while, if someone complains about a health issue, I'll tell them, like today at pickleball, there was a woman who was starting to get some hearing loss. And I said, hearing loss, how's your sinuses? And she goes, you know, I have such a terrible runny nose all the time. And I said, well, if you have sinus problems all the time and you have some hearing loss, it tells me that you have some severe inflammation. Why don't you try an elimination diet and just like eat beef, butter, bacon, and eggs for 30 days and see what happens? And she's like, are you nuts? I'd rather get a cochlear implant than change my diet. I'm like, oh, well, okay. So that's the type of people I deal with. They'd rather take the drug. They'd rather have the surgery. They'd rather have the replacement. I have one woman that I tried to work with that I stopped working with her because I overheard her telling someone, oh, I just got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I'm going to take my insulin so I can indulge on the pastry table back there. I'm like, okay. And at that moment, I decided I'm not cut out for coaching because I don't know how to have compassion for stupidity. And that's kind of that's how I work. That's how my brain works. It's like, I'm not very compassionate. I realize that. I don't know how to be content. I want to shake them. I'm like, do you realize how stupid that is, what you just said? So I leave it to other people to do that kind of stuff now. And I just share my story.
You've been carnivore for quite a while. And if you've looked into this and you've watched everyone else and you've seen, there's like this cycle of carnivore where people will get carnivore, feel so good. Then, you know, they go through the ups and the downs. They hire the coach, they join the group, they hire the individual coach. There's just a whole cycle. And towards the end of the cycle is reintroducing other foods. Did you ever reintroduce other foods? And
yes.
Have you kept them in or kicked them back out?
Yeah. I didn't catch the last part of what you said. It faded out or something.
Have you ever reintroduced other foods back? And did they stay back or did you leave them out?
So this past year, I dabbled in the circadian rhythm biology, getting up with the morning sunrise and grounding and eating the seasonal vegetables that grow locally and no pesticides. And so I'll have an occasional Caesar salad without the croutons with my ribeye. And at Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'll have sweet potato with my turkey or ham or roast, whatever it is we're cooking for the holiday. And I pick in June, I'll pick raspberries, blueberries, and strawberries at the local farm that doesn't spray them. So I'm fortunate to have a lot of farms in the area in which I live and natural growers that don't use chemicals. And that's it. And when I was doing the LMNT, I would make LMNT popsicles with frozen Maine blueberries. And in the heat of the summer, I would do that. But basically, I just eat ribeye steaks, salmon, oysters, sardine, chicken wings, just all the meat-based animal foods, all of them. I don't have any allergies to anything. Even the sensitivity that I used to have to eggs disappeared when I went carnivore. Because when everything's bioavailable in the body and the body heals everything, like even arthritis, I healed that. Like everything healed. Like, so I won't eat processed foods, never again, like chip, Fritos, all that junk food. No. So, and I don't want my mental illness to come back. So sugar and gluten and wheat is out of the picture, I might try Dr. Kiltz's ice cream recipe if I ever buy an ice cream maker.
So you mentioned earlier on about your bad stomach pains. When you do have that Caesar salad occasionally or that sweet potato, do you notice any symptoms like that? Or is it just you're able to eat those things and feel okay?
I haven't had any reaction, but you're talking like twice a year. I'm probably eating it. So where I used to eat salads every day. So there's that. So I would say, I was telling Casey and Adam in my last interviews, I guess you could say I'm 95% carnivore 100% of the time, So now the berry season's over. That's only in June and July. So there's no more fruit. That's it. It's over. It's done with, I don't freeze stuff really to keep it for next year like other people do. They'll pick stuff and freeze it, but no vegetables. Really, except the sweet potato at Christmas and Thanksgiving. I don't do broccoli and cauliflower anymore, or green beans or carrots or any of that stuff. And a lot of it is because since being carnivore, discovering that they're all genetically modified and were created in a laboratory and they don't grow naturally anywhere in the world. Hello. So I love it when Carrie Mann from Healing Humanity goes on his rampage about vegetables. I was like, right on, dude. That's me all the way.
Well, I've seen you in real life. You're absolutely gorgeous. You've done a wonderful job. It's such an inspiration that not only have you lost this, you've kept it off, you've healed your brain, you've healed your body. It's amazing. If anybody wants to go out and follow Susan, I'd like to show she's on Instagram. What? Wow. That is amazing.
Yeah, I'm muscles. All muscles. I'm solid.
So I take it you do some lifting. I see some lifting right here.
Oh yeah, deadlifts. Yeah. Oh yeah, that was the front squats yesterday.
And you can also meet Susan in person because she's a pretty active meetup person. I think I've met you twice. Did I meet you at the Northeast meetup?
Yep.
And then Hack Your Health?
Yep.
And I know I'll meet you again. And so you can go out. She's Catholic Carnivore 64. And
and I sell Korean skincare.
Oh, is that the same stuff Linda sells? And Dr. Rimka?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I've heard
we're on the same team.
amazing things about that. Amazing.
it has taken all my age spots off of my face. It
Really?
has menopausal cystic acne gone. Smooth, beautiful. I love it. I love it. I'm on their team. We're going to California for our convention in 2 weeks. It's sold out.
Amazing.
Where in California? That's where I live.
Irvine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's just over the hill. It's like about an hour and a half from me.
Oh my gosh. We should hook up. We're staying at the Hyatt Regency.
Okay. Yeah. Message me. We'll talk later. Okay. So I guess it's my turn to present my screen because I have a meaty wheel, and I think it's about time we spin that meaty wheel and come up with a good question for Susan. So here is our meaty wheel. I'm going to give it a spin, and we're going to hunt down a question for you. Okay, here's our meaty question. How do you handle meal planning and preparation on a carnivore diet? And do you find it challenging or time consuming?
Not at all. Not at all time consuming or challenging. Carnivore is food freedom. And I'm not like other carnivores. I don't have all the gadgets in my kitchen. I don't do the air fryer. I don't do anything. I just take a little old broiler pan and put it in the oven under broil. That's how I cook all my steaks. I just go and I get all the steaks. I get all the chicken. I get all the fish every payday, put them in the freezer, pull them out, thaw them, throw them on the pan, throw them in the oven, broil them. 15 minutes. And we have our full meal, and I love it. Easy peasy. Nothing has ever been easier to cook than carnivore. Meal planning's easier. The cost of eating is 50% less than what I've ever spent on food in my lifetime. Even with inflation, it's still cheaper than what I used to spend on groceries. It's amazing because when you feed yourself the right foods, you don't get cravings, you don't get hungry. It's like, oh, I ate, it's good, delicious. Now on to the next thing. So you free up time, life, and it's awesome.
That is awesome. Yeah, I like this simple preparation of things as well.
Well, I think that brings us to our final event of the show, which is our roar. Are you all ready to get your roars in the chat? All right. 3, 2, 1. Roar!
Roar!
I've been working on my roar.
Yeah, oh, yeah. There's Susan. She wanted to be heard. That was amazing. That was amazing.
There's like a 3-second delay before we can. There we go.
I'm so sorry,
There's
Bruce.
Ellie.
Right over there. She's been here this whole time. She's been sitting on my desk. She's not on this side. She's on this side where you can't see her. How rude. Yay, Eric. Yay, Josephine. I love it. Hey, bring me that cat, Zach. My son is over here with the cat. I'm going to have her. This is for you, Bruce. Here's Zach with my cat, Pixel. And here she is to say hello. She's not happy. She's very upset.
I like
nope, she wants out of here. There she is. Roar. Okay. All right. Sorry. That was for Bruce because she hasn't showed up in weeks. Poor Bruce. He's having pixel withdrawals. Anyway, sorry about that. Susan, we were so happy to have you on the show. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. We will see you next Tuesday when we will have another amazing guest for you. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thanks for having me.